Chapter 3: How to Build a Suspension Bridge. Washington knew how to build a suspension bridge. He knew how to build towers, cables, and a roadway. In some ways, that was the easiest part. The hard part was the very first step, building the caissons. Those were the bases that went deep into the river, under the towers. That had to be done before anything else. A suspension bridge is different from other kinds of bridges. On a suspension bridge, the weight of the roadway is suspended or held up by wires attached to cables. There are three main parts that you can see when you look at a suspension bridge: the towers, the cables, and the roadway. You can also see thin wire ropes, but you can't see the caissons because they're underwater. The first step is to put the caissons in place, and then build two tall towers on top of them, one on each side of the river. The towers have to be very tall so that the roadway will be high above the river to allow boats to pass under it. The towers also have to be very solid and strong. Why? Because all the weight of the bridge will be pressing down on them. The second step is to make the huge cables that hold up the roadway. The cables have to be strong enough to hold up the weight of the bridge and not break. The cables are made up of thousands of pieces of thin wire. Each wire is less than 1/4 of an inch thick. But when thousands of wires are wrapped together, they become one huge, thick cable. In the Brooklyn Bridge, the cables are almost 16 inches thick. Most suspension bridges have either 2 or 4 huge main cables. The Brooklyn Bridge has 4. Dangling straight down from the cables are lots of pieces of wire rope. These ropes are called the suspenders. Like a pair of suspenders that hold up pants, they hold up the floor of the bridge. They are wrapped around the cables and they attach to the roadway, just like the ropes of a swing are attached to the seat. The roadway actually hangs down from all those ropes or suspenders, like the seat of a swing. The third step in building a bridge is to make the roadway. A roadway is made up of a lot of sections of steel. Each piece is hung from the ropes and cables, one piece at a time. But wait, what keeps the cables from falling down? What are they attached to? The huge cables rest on the towers, but they aren't really attached to the towers. The cables are attached or anchored to a large building on the land. The building is called an anchorage. There are 2 anchorages, one on each side of the river. When the cables are made, the wires are wrapped around some metal bars that are buried inside the anchorage. The metal bars are held in place by tons and tons of stone. With enough stone on top, the bars can't move. The wires can't move, so the cables of the bridge can't go anywhere. Building the towers would have to be Washington's first step. But before he could build the towers, he had to build the bases for the towers, the caissons. That was the most dangerous step. It was where so many things could go wrong. And so many things did. Other suspension bridges. The Brooklyn Bridge was the longest suspension bridge in the world when it was built. The distance between the 2 towers was 1,595 feet. That's about 6 blocks long. 20 years later, a longer bridge opened on the East River. It was called the Williamsburg Bridge. Then, the Manhattan Bridge was built. By 1909, there were 3 bridges connecting Brooklyn and the island of Manhattan. The longest suspension bridge in the United States today is called the Verrazano-Narrows Bridge. It connects 2 parts of New York City, Brooklyn and Staten Island. It is 4,260 feet long. The second longest in the United States is the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, which is 4,200 feet long. Where is the longest suspension bridge in the world? Japan. It's the Akashi-Kaki Bridge, also called the Pearl Bridge. The whole bridge is more than 2 miles long.